And we're live on the Gamification Revolution. Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Matchy Matchy Day on the Gamification Revolution podcast and web show. It's so exciting to be here. I'm your host, Gabe Zichermann. My guest today, Pascal Leclerc from nGUVU, is joining us from Montreal. Hi, Pascal.
Hi, Gabe. Hi, everyone.
We did not plan this shirt coordination in advance. I promise you it is a complete fluke. It just so happens, if you've ever been to Canada, my home country, we all wear the same shirt pretty much all the time. We only have like one shirt to choose from, right? Plus one formal wear item. So we're allowed one shirt and then one thing for funerals and weddings. So we are, it's not a wedding or a funeral. Although in a way it is a kind of funeral without being sad about it. Many of you have probably seen the notice when you logged into Spreecast today that it's pretty much closing down, this amazing technology we've been using. We'll find another way to get access to it. But in the meantime, for those of you who are interested in following up on the archives of Gamification Revolution, they're available on our YouTube channel. They're available on gamification.co and also as a syndicated iTunes podcast that you can sign up for, so you can get all the audio content that way. So we won't lose any of the history of GREV, but we're going to have to find a new way to actually do it going forward. Because we'll miss you, Spreecast. Bye. Okay, but let's move on to new beginnings, because we've had Spreecast is going away, but we've got new beginnings, and we've got some people to say hi to. And hello, everyone. It's so nice to see you, Sasha, Lori, David, Tiago. Wow, it's exciting that you guys are all here. And for those of you who are new, welcome, welcome. So glad that you could join us. Okay, so Pascal, tell us about, I know there's been a big announcement, and nGUVU has raised some money. Tell us what it is that nGUVU actually does. What's your kind of focus?
Our focus is really we aim to revolutionize contact centers, but one agent at a time. We strongly believe in the science behind gamification, and we want to really capitalize on those concepts to change the industry, but from the agent's perspective. Being a contact center agent is a difficult job. They have a lot of KPIs or metrics, if you will, to meet on a daily basis, and it can be very difficult. So capitalizing on gamification and machine learning, we want to really enhance their life experience, their work experience, and hopefully our ultimate goal is really to extend their tenure, as attrition is a big issue in contact centers.
Yeah, it seems like contact centers come up a lot in the discussion of, gamification of work and the quality of work life. And having been into a couple in my lifetime, they're often among the most miserable places I've been. I haven't been to an animal abattoir, so I assume that's worse. But contact centers without the blood and gore are among the worst kind of office settings I've certainly been in. So what is the central problem that you think gamification can solve, like in the contact center? You talked a little bit about retention, but what's at the core of the retention problem in the contact center?
It's really building the motivation to want to achieve and do your work while you're in a situation where time is always difficult. Everything in contact centers is monitored down to the minute, and even agents are measured down to the minute. Everything they need to do has to be done at a specific time or a specific duration. So really is enhancing that life, that reality, because if you don't have any minutes to spare, coaching, training, and proper performance tracking goes out the window. So our solution is really offering that immersive experience to agents, that you log into one place, you can interact, you can see your performance, and you can see how well you're doing on a daily basis throughout the day. And it becomes very interactive, which is kind of new to contact center, because contact centers, you sit at your cubicle, you put on your headset, you take your calls. But opening up using a solution that's web-based, opening up that environment to colleagues that are in other sites and seeing how well they perform and sharing your accomplishments, it really brings that collaboration and social aspect to the contact center and builds motivation. So really, our challenge is to get across as quickly as possible to the end.
Well, one of the things that people bring up, though, which I think is an essential sort of tension in gamification of work, and you sort of touched on it, but I want to go back to it for a second. So some people would argue, well, the core problem is that the job itself, this kind of monitoring system that the companies use, was like kind of the wrong approach to motivating people the right way. Like, right, like they went to this very controlled, structured world, and that's part of the reason why a call center is such a terrible place to work in. Why don't they just fix that problem? So instead of like layering, some kind of motivational thing on top of it, why not just restructure the whole call center? What do you say to that?
The reality of contact center is that it's data driven, it's performance driven, that's for sure. But I kind of understand where you're going with this, and this is our approach. Is really, instead of adding a layer of monitoring and whatnot, let's just bring that information to the agents on a live basis and have them have somewhat of control over their auto adjustments, auto correction to meet the proper performance. A lot of centers are moving away from a lot of metrics, but ultimately, if you have one metric, it's going to be customer satisfaction. So you need to know about it. And that interaction, either on the phone or coming back to you through different channels, need to be given to the agents as soon as possible. And this is, if you do something in contact centers, make sure you have that customer satisfaction, bring it back to the agents, and build on that to make them want to succeed even more.
So, okay, so it sounds like one of the core elements, one of the core thinking about how your platform works is like a feedback loop that's really rapid. Can you talk about sort of the experience that you guys have had implementing it in contact centers and what some of the sort of results are? What have you learned about using nGUVU in that sort of setting?
Right. So experience implementing it is one of the key items that stands out is agents telling us, you know what, I understand even better now my metrics. I understand what it means, and I understand how I influence it. Simple as opening a contact center, you need people to show up to work and do the proper things at the right time. So right there, that's the core of contact centers. And even at that point, agents are understanding even better their influence and how they can help with that aspect of the contact center. So starts there. So from feedback perspective, we got that type of feedback, and that to me it was very interesting. Managed contact centers for 15 years, and I think we assume that agents understand all their metrics. So that was really good. And the key successes we've had is really having people understanding. I'll talk about schedule adherence. It's really, schedule adherence is doing the right things at the right time. Everything is planned from a contact center perspective, but individually, if I go on break at the right time or not, I'm still on break. But the big picture gets impacted very much. So right there, easy to translate schedule adherence into performance or productivity gains. So all the clients we are working with have a lot of gains concerning schedule adherence, and which is time, and which translates to money at the end of the day.
So basically inside this tightly controlled environment of the call center, like where the people are inside a small box, you even describe this cubicle as like a little box. The big tension would seem to be that autonomy versus control tension that I would guess is a big part of the sort of conflict between, what the company thinks it wants and what the people actually want. So is this really about autonomy? Is that what the gamification elements of nGUVU are doing, is like just building autonomy for people?
It is in part building that autonomy. We've talked about auto-correcting and auto-managing your performance. Instead of having your supervisor meeting with you in a formal setting, talking about the performance, how about you just take a look at it on a daily basis? Like if you were playing a game, you know your result, you know how well you're doing, how you're progressing. That's what we're doing. We're not changing the KPIs or the key performance indicators. We're just presenting them very differently to the agent. And it becomes very subtle. It's like a little voice behind the agents that, they take a look at their performance in our platform, they interact, they have that social aspect going on, and they just want to perform even better. We're really building on the natural desires for collaboration and so on, and achieving.
So can you say more about how you actually present those KPIs to them? Because the historical kind of early gamified sales floor concept, right, was you put the big leaderboard up on the screen, and many early examples of how to gamify sales floors or contact centers really fixated on that competitive element, that competitive design, which I was saying, I've said from the beginning, and other people, other practitioners have been very clear about, competition isn't enough for most people and isn't exactly what many people want. Can you talk more about how you reframe that, or, how important is competition?
Right. Competition is one thing, but not everybody's competitive. And depending on the nature of contact center, a sales environment is everybody's competitive. Yes, you need to have the right triggers at the right time to push even more sales. But if you talk about, let's say, customer service or even acquisition of clients or even collections, they're very different, and the nature of the business is different, and the nature of the agents are very different. So
Sure.
I'll go back to schedule adherence. Schedule adherence typically is given to the agents as a percentage of minutes that you were out of a deal. That really doesn't say much to the agents. What
Yeah.
we did is really simple. We broke down the schedules, all the activities, and we came up with a target. And the target is minutes. So you have a 5-minute target. Are you within that 5 minute? That's the acceptable range. And if you are, well, you're on the target. That's fantastic. If you're not, well, you're outside the target. And it brings everybody to, very simple to understand. Did I hit the target or not? So changing how we present that data, that metric to the agents was even more than what I expected, because each activity is now a dot on the target or an arrow on the target, and now they're driving towards the right behavior at every step of the day. So we change a bit how they see the metrics. We do not want to look like another dashboard or another Excel file or a spreadsheet. Our platform is really, it looks like a website, a social media website, looks like a game. Everybody has a player profile. So it's really how we present the results to them.
What is the social element that you've mentioned it a couple of times, but how does socializing work, and how do companies feel about, like, I know that social is like hot in the corporate sector, but I'm sort of curious in the call center, where my impression is that they kind of want, if you don't want people talking to each other.
Well, a social aspect is really starts from the beginning from our platform. Agents have an avatar that represents them. So avatars have been used, and I was kind of skeptical at the beginning, but they're
Sure.
very popular.
Oh,
People are creative, and in that box, they want to step out of it, get out of it. So a lot of avatars is very popular, but it doesn't stop there. Everything you do in contact centers, it's either you know about it or your supervisor knows about it. So every good achievement that are happening in the contact center, either it be that you meet performance for 5 days in a row and whatnot, they're socialized through a message center, similar to a Twitter feed, but nobody writes in it. It's really our solution sending the accomplishments and getting that cheer, that feedback, that peer recognition back. So that's a small aspect. But also from a performance perspective, let's say you have a center that's in 5 sites, Montreal, Vancouver, and wherever. Usually you know about your site. But now we're web-based. It's easy to open up that view and see who else is performing somewhere else, interact with them. We allow agents to send challenge to each other. So from a very individual business concept of coming in to work and meeting your performance, now you can challenge your colleague in Vancouver and have fun with it and have fun throughout your day. See who's performing, who's winning. And we're opening, that's the social aspect of it that we're kind of opening up. So far, it's been very well received by customers. At the beginning, some were skeptical, but as we start using it, agents have fun with it.
is that because the agents are young?
No, actually, one of our most successful site is in the Maritimes here in Canada, and the tenure is about 5 years in that center. So tenure was not necessarily the issue, but really motivation and engagement was. And it's towards the average age is about 40 years old. So everybody's participating.
Do you see any, I don't know how many sites you've implemented in yet, but have you seen any kind of differences, between either younger and older, or the types of contact centers? So like when you're doing, what's more like technical support versus more like just customer care or more sales?
We've seen a bit of difference between different nature of contact centers. Technical support are the first on and they're the first adhering to it. But some groups are doing back office work, like behind the scenes work, finishing up trouble tickets or following it up in systems. I see a bit less engagement at the beginning. Overall, they still participate, but I think the nature of that type of work and the people doing it is a bit different. So we've seen it from that perspective, but that's pretty much it.
That's interesting. I think like one of the one of the questions that comes up a lot when we think about how to gamify different experiences, but let's take sales or contact center kind of experience, is how you balance off those things which are more gamey. And I wish we had kind of screenshot to show. Maybe Matt can find one from the list of things, of how the nGUVU platform actually looks. But one of the things, the balancing question is how do we balance, something that feels more game-like. So with, the avatars and, progress mechanics or even, really specifically game-like interactions and things which are less game-like and more gamified, progress-oriented, the points, the, progress system and so on. Have you guys thought about different versions of that? And what are your thoughts about, kind of big lessons learned from the balance of those two things? Because it sounds like you've tried to balance it based on the way you've described it to us.
Yeah, absolutely. I when I work with our development team, I always talk about, agents features and metrics. So to me, there are two things, right? Metrics are metrics, and we need to find the best way of pushing that to the agents in the most fun and engaging way and working on the right triggers to get their motivation going.
Right.
So we're testing with our customers some different and new metrics and testing out some visual display and aspect of ease of understanding. I was talking about our time constraints in contact centers. I can't be explaining a metric for 30 minutes. That would defeat the purpose, right? So it needs to be to the point. So we're always refining how quickly agents can understand where they are, what's their progress, and how they can achieve. So from a metric perspective, we're always reassessing and renewing the way we display things. And from the agent's perspective, the agent's features, it's just fun things to add to their interaction. So like a feature that a module we're going to be launching is quizzes. So it's not a metric, but it's something that contact centers need. They need to validate, classroom trainings. They need to validate understanding. But right now, outside of e-learning, they don't have any method to do really quick quiz to their agents and engage agents into participating to those quizzes. More often than not, a paper, a PDF file is sent to the agents, and if they read it, but there's no way of validating. So offering that through our platform is going to engage people to want to read it, be the first to read it, be the first to get that feedback back, and participate, collaborate in the success of the contact center. So balancing it this way is kind of our challenge, and it has to be something that's easy and quick to use.
So, okay, so the quizzes are interesting and like to me, the whole question of the ongoing learning and development, right, is sort of like a separate, like when we first think of the contact center, we're thinking about that call metrics, time metrics, customer sat thing. And then now you're also talking about the L&D side. And of course, Lori, who I think is more on the L&D side, if memory serves, Lori has a question for you, which is, what are some of the behaviors that you've seen that have changed the most as a result of gamifying? You've talked a little bit about, their kind of schedule adherence. What are the kind of like big things that popped out at you, and what were you most surprised at when you actually started building this system?
In addition to schedule adherence, we really were able to change the behavior towards that metric. Instead of thinking about a percentage of minutes out of adherence, you're now looking at adherence to each activity in your schedule. So drove a lot of improvements from a business perspective, and also change in the agent's behavior. I was mentioning earlier, if I'm on break at the right time or not, I'm still on break, right? So we were able to shift that towards performance, and we saw a good increase in schedule adherence, and it maintains. So I was quite happy about this. We're also seeing a lot more of interaction. So at the beginning, setting up your avatar, people were kind of standoffish, but then it started happening. Everybody was setting up their avatars, comparing their performance in the leaderboard and whatnot. So it drove a lot of interaction with only if the cheer function that, sending like a favorite in Facebook, if you will,
Yeah.
sending that peer feedback. People are participating a lot in that. So it's kind of fun to see people recognizing everybody's achievements. So that's kind of something new because, as I mentioned earlier, performance is very individual. You rarely share your performance with your colleagues, but now through the platform, from an agent perspective, they can understand who's doing the good things or the achievements as they work their day-to-day life. So we saw that behavior change in opening up to other agents in the center, other sites, and having that peer recognition.
Okay, interesting. That I think like that almost honestly on its own, would be in my mind would be like worth its own kind of like, almost like worth its own like research project because it does sound. I know that you're trying to make your product fit into and expand upon what already exists in the contact center, but some of the ideas that you put forward, like that the people should be collaborative are things that I think companies say they want, but then in practice in the call center are not good at doing at all. So it's almost like I wonder if there's a lot of tension there for you when you're selling, to companies. Like, are you selling aspirationally, or are you selling like specifically saying like this is going to solve this problem, or you have to say we can unlock these behaviors?
Well, it always depends on who you're talking to, right? If you're
Yeah.
talking to higher management, they really need to hit the nail on performance. And this is one of our challenges. We need to deliver that performance, but we need to engage agents. So our end goal is, making sure the business gets the benefits from our solution, but from the agent perspective. Really, we're not just another tracking tool. We're really there to manage or influence the behavior and have the agents perform. So sometimes it can, and to your point, you started that comment with even from a social aspect perspective or peer recognition perspective, it should be enough. I think this brings a lot of value to contact centers. We are working with a center that's more mature from a performance perspective. They're almost best in class, but the agents, the feedback they're giving us is this is opening up my center to me. I didn't know about those folks in the other side or even the other floor. So it's opening up that let's make the contact center a fun and engaging experience throughout your life cycle, your work life, sorry. And also, our platform is available outside business hours. So rarely do you see an agent typically looking at the performance outside business hours, and now they have access to it, and they do. So it's
That's
really
cool.
fun to see back. Yeah, it is cool because that's something I was surprised about. So going back to your question about behavior, it
Yeah.
just came back to me that, we have those agents working 4 or 5 days a week, but logging into the platform 7 days a week.
Right. Well, one question kind of sort of on that sort of spur from Simone. Thanks so much, Simone, for the question and welcome. Which is about long-term efficacy and kind of content creation. So I just two questions for you. The first one is how long has this been running in the longest site? So I know that nGUVU just raised $3 million, which is congratulations to you guys for a healthy fundraising especially for Canadian startup. But how long term is it? What's the longest sort of project that we've been looking at? And then the second question, which I want to modify a little bit, is about content. Are you guys creating the kind of content that's used to drive and engage people, or is that on the kind of customer site to sort of create and then you implement?
Okay, so our longest customer has been on for about 9 months.
Right.
And they've been doing very well. A lot of gain at the beginning. So we're wondering, is it the novelty thing that it's new and it's now on, and it gave us some performance benefits, but it will not sustain. But it's sustaining. And to the question from Simon, it's really that we don't necessarily roll out everything all at once from an agent perspective. Often they're learning about their new KPIs. They're seeing it from a different perspective. So rolling out metrics that we are using in the tool, it's based on a few weeks intervals. And also, our method of developing is agile, so we run a new version every 2 weeks. So we're adding new measures, new features, and also contact centers, typically, they have their pain points, and they're not always the same throughout the year. So sometimes it's measure number one, sometimes it's the metric number two. So customers can, put more emphasis on one compared to the other. But going back to one of my first comments, it's not, it's not a marketing tool, it's a business work tool. So agents have to use it. So we need to keep them motivated. So yes, we're launching new things, new measures, new performance indicators, and new features based on both two things: feedback from our customers, wish lists. So our early adopters are really defining our roadmap. And also, to your question, we create everything. So it's based on customers will bring to us a problem they have, and then we go to work. We work with them, but then we go back internally. We have a small team here. It's really the locker room effect of working together and solving those problems as quickly as possible.
So David asked a question that was interesting, specific kind of to the call center environment, which is there's a lot of outsourcing. And I think David had mentioned in chat that he had worked for a call center in Mexico in the past. So one sort of question for you, I think in general, which is, how does it actually work when you're working with like the company and then all these outsourced people? And, when you're building a gamification system that might ultimately touch so many cultures. I mean, you guys are based in Canada, but in French Canada, your clients are, by the sound of it, both in English and French Canada, probably also in the US and abroad. Like, how do you design culturally appropriate, solutions that touch so many people, in this function?
Right. So currently we're in Canada and we're expanding in the US. So we'll be very curious, and we're very anxious to learn about, are there really differences? So probably as we get further and further from where we are in Montreal, there's going to be adjustments to be made for sure. So that's why we have a very dynamic, agile development process, because we want to be fresh all the time. And our model for, if this is a monthly subscription, so we need to prove our worth every month. So we're really capitalizing on that. And either it be an in-source call center, like working directly with the company, or not an outsourced one, the challenges remain the same. Both of them are looking for performance. But from an outsourcing perspective, and we are working with some outsourcers, it's really they need to cash on each activity these agents do. They're selling hours, right? They need to be able to be as performing or productive as possible. So the concept when we talk to those outsourcers is much more performance driven. And also, this is where most of the feedback from agents are coming, that, we appreciate this new tool. It gives us more fun at work. From that perspective, there's a lot of feedback. From a corporate, let's say an in-source contact center, it's a lot more about opening up that social aspect, peer recognition. Performance is most of the time almost close to best in class, but there's always one pain point every so often. So it gives them that lever of control that they can enhance the performance on a specific metric, but it gives the agents a more social aspect, social environment aspect to those companies.
Yeah, and it would be interesting. I can't imagine that it's going to be, I mean, even culturally between Montreal specifically and the Canadian Maritimes, though it's one country, I mean, those are two fairly different cultural environments. And I'm originally from Toronto, and I would say Toronto would be a third, different culture. So I assume that there's going to be some tweaking to gamification over time that would be required to account for different cultural sensitivity all around, whether that's competition or collaboration, language choices, and so on. One question from Lori, and actually David asked the same question, which is about rewards. We haven't really talked about, how we reward people for their behavior. Contact centers are heavily incentive driven, often, right? Fairly low paying jobs with a big incentive layer. What are you guys doing in terms of gamified rewards? How important are they? What have you learned?
From our experience, and I've worked 15 years in contact centers, and my colleagues too, a lot of experience in contact centers, but one thing that remains is that each of them are very different. So we did not structure a reward system based on our points. We're opening that up to our customers. So they can choose what's the qualifier for their incentive. They can choose what do you need to do during the month, the 3-month, the 6-month period, or the year. What do agents need to achieve in engagement using our point system, our recognition system, and our reward system. Just intrinsic things happening in the tool, and how do they apply it internally to their reality. Contact centers, some of them, will recognize with gift cards, and other ones will give days off. So very difficult to manage. So we're leaving that to the discretion of our customers, but they can use our platform to popularize this and to announce this to their team.
It really seems to me like the rewards element, the rewards element is going to have to be addressed at some point. I'll be curious to check in. We should check in as you build more people kind of in your network. It seems like an opportunity, an opportunity might exist to bring some kind of external rewards layer to it that's like more, even if it's kind of virtual rewards, but something that nGUVU provides that's like a layer on top of what's happening in the call center. That might be kind of interesting, like best call center employee of the year globally.
I'm thinking about having the nGUVU World website where agents can compare, but we'll get to that.
I'd love it. And Tiago's on his way out the door because we're almost out of time. But I have one last question for you, Pascal, which is, how do you make this fun? Tiago asked, "Is it fun?" And let's say that's a relative question. How do we make this experience? How do we make something that's like a call center job fun? And what's the vision for a future where this job is fun?
Really, our vision is to always have the agents at the center of our strategy, center of our solution, and we're really open to that, to the feedback directly from the agents. So we're building new features based on agents' feedback first and foremost. It is fun because before, you would not really know about your colleagues on the next floor, even worse on the next site in the other city. You didn't have that peer recognition all the time on a daily basis. Say from sometimes contact centers run incentives and run contests, and you walk in, there's a whiteboard with Pascal being number one. But if nobody goes through across that whiteboard, they will never know. So we're opening that up. So even just that, it's becoming a lot more fun. And one of our first customers with 50 agents, after 3 weeks, we had about 1,000 avatar changes. So it was really fun to see people engaging in that way and voting on avatars and giving feedback. So opening up, over and above the performance, opening up the contact center to the agents and to everybody that's working in that contact center is really, I think it's hitting the nail on the head and making it a lot more fun for agents to come in.
Yes, and perhaps another thing that would be fun is to have a big giveaway where you could win one of our blue plaid shirts.
Yes, exactly.
As part of the thing. Thank you so much, Pascal. If you want to follow the nGUVU guys, they are on Twitter at N_Gagement, which sounds crazier than it is, but actually more logical than it seems. They've also posted a link to various YouTube videos of contact center transformation under their power, so you may want to check that out if you see that link there. It's a bit.ly link. And as I mentioned before, you guys, we're not going to have access to this Spreecast platform anymore, so we got to find something else to make this work for the next edition of the Gamification Revolution. So we'll get on that project. And in the meantime, you can follow, all the existing videos. There's a full archive of all of our discussions are available online on our YouTube channel. So if you just go to that YouTube link that you see there, or just type in Gamification Revolution or my name, Gabe Zichermann, on YouTube, you'll find all the videos, and you can follow me on Twitter at @gzichermann. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us. So nice to see you, everybody. And thank you, Pascal. See you all very soon. In the meantime, keep having fun.